What I want to talk about now is the active and passive voice of verbs. This is some of the most common writing problems that I see, especially among inexperienced writers, and it's very easy to fix this. Let me explain the difference. Active voice means a verb's subject performs the action expressed by the verb. Look at the example sentence. A group of 16 countries constructed the International Space Station. The verb constructed is an action verb. It's being done by this group of 16 countries. So a subject, the group of 16 countries, is performing the action expressed by the verb. This makes this an active voice verb. Let's look at passive voice. When a verb subject receives the action expressed by the verb, that verb is in the passive voice. So let's take another example. The International Space Station was constructed by a group of 16 countries. Here we have the action of the verb being done to the subject. The was constructed was done to the International Space Station. That puts this verb in passive voice rather than active voice. You want to use passive voice only when you're trying to emphasize the receiver of the action, or if you don't know who did the action. Otherwise, it's always a good idea to change those passive voice verbs to active voice. It just makes your writing more interesting and exciting. Here's how to do it. Changing passive voice to active voice. First, figure out what is the verb and what is the performer of the action. Here we have the space station is being lived in by astronauts. So we have the performer is the astronauts. The verb is being lived. So we know that the verb is being done to the astronauts. So now what we want to do is we want to move the performer of the action in front of the verb so that we can change the verb to the active voice. So we would take astronauts, put it in front of the verb, change the verb to a more active verb, and we have a new sentence. Astronauts is living in the space station. Well, is living isn't the right thing to put after astronaut, so now we have to make sure it's in agreement with number. So we would change is to are. Now we have a sentence, astronauts are living in the space station. So we have the performer of the action, astronauts, doing the verb, are living. So that makes this changing from passive voice to active voice. When you use the passive voice too often, it's going to make your writing really dull and lifeless. So it's always a good idea to use the active voice whenever possible.